found a research project called the Spain Scale of Emotion, S-P-A-N-E. Researchers were able to take 25,000 subjects and put them in a room, and they were able to measure the frequency leaving the human body. And do you know what the most powerful frequency to leave the human body is? Frequency of authenticity. Authenticity is 4,000 times more powerful than love.
You don't only create informed fields, you are an informed field.
The highest frequency is authenticity. Not love, joy. Yeah, it's nice, but it's that.
What's the best way to be authentic? To be authentic. And the best part is authenticity requires no preparation. It does require courage.
Why am I here?
Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix.
This contest between attachment and authenticity can be a painful one.
You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision.
If it cannot connect vibrationally, it cannot connect physically, because the physical is just an expression of the vibrational, the information.
To my attention, she goes, you know why I think you were untouched compared to like a lot of people who got their houses raided, got thrown in jail or whatever. She goes, I think it was because your humility in how you did things.
And they found that the greatest frequency to ever leave a human being's body is the frequency of authenticity. Is the frequency of authenticity. It is the most attractive and the most powerful frequency that humankind has. So how do you emit the emotion? How do you emit the frequency of authenticity? Your words have to be truthful, and you have to believe what you're saying. If you believe what you're saying and your words are truthful, you will emit the frequency of authenticity. It is the most attractive frequency that the universe gives us.
It's true. If you're authentic, you might lose some attachment relationships. That's going to be painful. But which pain would you rather have? The pain of being authentic and losing some friendships that were no friendships at all? Or the pain of losing yourself?
Felt protected because I felt that they couldn't even see me.
Who you are has everything to do with your ability to insulate yourself from the chaos around you. You don't have to suffer what the collective suffers. You don't have to go through anything the collective goes through. It's a personal choice. It always has been.
If you in any way become obsessed with protection, what you're saying is, I accept something can happen to me. In which case you're creating an energetic environment in which it could well happen to you. I don't accept that. So I don't protect myself. Why? Because I don't need protecting.
It was weird. I felt invisible to the construct.
Once you accept into your sense of reality that things could happen to you, then they're far, far more likely to happen. Because you are creating the energetic mental state in which they can manifest. I don't accept that can happen to me. And if it can't happen to me, I don't need bloody bodyguards, thank you very much. I do not understand or know how to handle people who are not in fear, either of them or death or any of it. They can't handle that because they can't understand it because that's not where they're at. And so it's interesting that in some of their writings, some of the documents that have come to light, they talk about the great danger to their plan of what they call maverick people. People who are not frightened of them, people who are not programmed by the system to think and see the world the way the system wants them to. They are very dangerous to this tyranny, and we need more of them. And I'm going to go on being a maverick until I've done what I've come to do, and they are not going to reduce that time 1 second.
The most assertive in their belief and knowing and confident within themselves, and the true confidence within themselves is their own authenticity. People are attracted to that authenticity because that person is expressing their unique soul expression that is part of the infinite. People are attracted to that, and then what they do is they will mimic. People will mimic, and mimicry is based out of jealousy.
They belong to the individual immortal who imagine them. Because imagination is not cerebral. Imagination is 100% a spiritual phenomenon. just like intuition, which is not produced by the brain. Imagination, intuition, and empathy. These are what make you spiritual. These qualities denote that you are far more than a human. You are something else. The human is only the physical part of the informed field for which the immortal soul produced.
Live on is through authenticity. I used to think it was love, but it's actually authenticity. So when you know your purpose and your why, you're your authentic self. For the listeners here today is like not only knowing your purpose and your why, but live unapologetically yourself. Be your authentic self.
I wasn't playing their game. I wasn't entertaining their lower vibrational frequency fear or shit like that. So I felt like I just wasn't able to be touched or seen. And even though it was very confronting and intimidating, there was this element of I felt safe. I felt protected. And I think it was because I wasn't I wasn't part of their little program.
Jesus had the key. Faith without works is dead. And by works, he's not talking about anything complicated. He's talking about any physical follow through. Speaking is a physical follow through. Walking 10 feet, turning left and looking up at the sky is a physical follow through. It doesn't matter. Whatever supports your informed field. And this is the secret to sympathetic magic.
The problem is people don't have the integrity, the self-love, the self-belief, the self-trust that they actually have the capacity to do that. That's the problem here. And we're all being tricked into externalizing and giving our power away constantly. You're creative beings. You're universal beings. You have access to the whole freaking universe. Wake up and start realizing it. Step into your creative shit. Start being who and what you truly are. You're humane beings.
I think authenticity it's such a big key, and it's something that I've been thinking about ever since. It was a few weeks ago and I went to Melbourne. I had this conversation with someone, and then Dee brought it up, and this has just been popping up everywhere. So I thought I'd just start off by just showing the etymology of the word first before I move on with this video. But so for the etymology, it says derived from authentis, ancient Greek, one acting on its own authority, right? So real sovereignty, the real soul expression. This would be created by melting two words, autos, which is self, and hentis is doer or being. Now, this is I'll show later why this is so important, especially with some of the stuff that Jason shares, that the authenticity is having that intention and knowing it, but then the most important part is acting it out. And this is truly how you manifest. Manifestation is rewarded by the authentic being.
Doubt is a very powerful force. It's induced by the simulacrum, but you don't have to entertain it. But if you do, it's being absorbed into your informed field, and it will cause a decay of your thought construct. But it doesn't even matter, because if your thought construct doesn't have any force behind it, and force is only created in physicality, you've got to remember, Jesus had the key. Faith without works is dead. And by works, he's not talking about anything complicated. He's talking about any physical follow through. Speaking is a physical follow through. Walking 10 feet, turning left and looking up at the sky is a physical follow through. It doesn't matter. Whatever supports your informed field. And this is the secret to sympathetic magic.
And then I was looking through heaps of different Bible ones, but there's a lot of the authenticity in the biblical references that I've seen authors write about, their authenticity comes from God. So it's kind of like there's this buffering between the real authentic individualized being and what they're interpreting as that with God. But it says here, John 3:18, dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. So this is exactly what I shared in that opening bit, and what it says with authenticity, that there's this action component right here. So within the Etymology, autos, self, hentus, doing.
So how do you emit the emotion? How do you emit the frequency of authenticity? Your words have to be truthful, and you have to believe what you're saying.
So it's the self projecting its own unique expression through action. And like here, it says within the Bible, this this is absolute truth, right? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech. So the speech is important and is an action in itself, but it's not the doing. It says not with actions, words, or speech, but with actions and in truth. So knowing the truth, this is what Pascal speaks about: knowledge, truth, intention, and then action. And the action component is so missing. But look, if you look at inauthentic, it said inauthentic in its most simplest definition is not in fact what is to be. It's the opposite of truth. And I'll show later how this is definitely referenced in, if you're going into either simulation theory or just this idea of this adversary of creation. But I'll show you this other one because it was Abby Chatfield that really triggered this for me, which is weird. And it just shows such an importance of looking at all different things. So I actually went on to this Meta AI, regardless of what people might think of it. I thought, fuck it, I'll type it in, right? And I was typing in heaps of different questions. And I said, is it possible for AI to express authenticity? Now, what I'll show later is AI is a mimic. And the opposite of authenticity, the opposite expression, is someone or something that mimics something else, and that this is based out of jealousy. AI, so this is what AI wrote back. AI can generate content that appears authentic, but whether it is truly expressing authenticity is a matter of ongoing debate amongst experts. Authenticity implies a sense of genuineness, originality. So AI is definitely not original, it's mimicking. Originality and human-like emotion. This is what Jason says of the intuition, empathy, that these things are not coming from the brain, that AI is all it is doing is trying to access neurology and the brain, but it has no access to the heart. I've said that many times. And human emotion, which AI systems currently struggle to replicate. Replicate is mimic. AI can mimic human languages, patterns, and styles, generate creative content such as art and music, simulate empathy and emotional states. So simulation, what Clint Richardson told us, simulation by definition equals hypocrisy. So simulation and the term the matrix is hypocrisy on one layer. However, AI lacks human experiences and emotions, conscious self-awareness, original intent, and creativity. What have I always been saying about sin? This is why the matrix wants to keep you within the belief of original sin. It says here, original intent. AI cannot have original intent. The true authentic self has original intent and creativity. It builds upon existing data. To express authenticity, AI would need to develop a deeper understanding of human emotions, experiences, and consciousness, which is a subject of ongoing research in areas of cognitive architectures. Again, architectures, right? Cognitive architecture. This is what they refer to as the grand architect of the universe, the AI, that is trying to replicate, affecting computing and artificial general intelligence. Currently, AI can simulate authenticity, I would say attempt, but it's still distinguishable from human expression. As AI advances, we may see more convincing simulations, but the question remains whether AI can truly be authentic or it is just exceptionally good at pretending to be. Interesting answer, hey? Now, I posted this the other day too. Authentic, this is another definition of undisputed origin and not a copy. So the opposite of mimicry and copying and pretending to be something you're not is authenticity, authentic. I thought this was a great one. I put it, Oscar Wilde quote. Most people are other people. Their thoughts are someone else's opinions. Their lives are mimicry. Their passions a quotation. And I do understand the irony of me reading a quotation, but you get the point. So most people are other people. Their thoughts are someone else's opinions. Their lives are mimicry. Their passions are quotation. So this is this whole battle between the authentic self and the collective. The program, this is why we all need to start with a blank sheet of paper and say, who am I? How do I express my unique self? And what ultimately I think that will do is there's too many anomalies within the system. And once you become an anomaly, you are invisible to the collective control and the mimicry of which is AI. This is another great one, Exodus. And this is why, because I said the opposite of authenticity, which I've just shown, is mimicry. And if you go back to Yahweh and the Old Testament God, there is so much in there. I went through so many different ones of the jealous God, and it makes you think why. Now, if God was jealous of what or of who? Jealousy is mimicry, which is the opposite of authenticity. So when this God says, "For you must not worship any other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God." What is this telling you? Now, this is the same God that says you were born of sin. Why would it want to keep you trapped in that? I think this is so powerful, because when people worship, that is a form of handing over your sovereignty and handing over your authenticity. You're formed into the collective, which is mimicry, and it is based on jealousy. So I'll say it again. For you must not worship any other God, for the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. Wow, that is seriously powerful. So ultimately, what I'm concluding now, and I'll show the rest of the video after this, but that so much of fighting against the external, positioning yourself in the collective, and ultimately insecurity and not wanting to be who you are, it manifests itself as human mimicry. And we see this all over the place of people trying to be something they're not. People forming into collectives where they don't have to express their original intention, their soul expression, and they'll form into groupthinks of religious dogma or whatever it might be. And what it is that it's a cutting and a severing of their authenticity. And this is why you'll see people jump from so many different sides of dogmatism. It's like an absolute fear to express who you really are. So I'll just leave it at that and enjoy the video.
Ellen White said that he was a coxcomb and a bore. Weak, vain, pushing, curious, garrulous was obvious to all those who knew him. That he could not reason, had no wit, no humour, or no eloquence was apparent from his writing. His mind resembled one of those creatures that the botanists call parasites, which subsist only by clinging round the stems and imbibing the juices of stronger plants. They are the people that tell us how to live our lives. I made that last bit up. That was the last sentence.
Poetry.
That other business.
How do you remember that?
Parasites, they are. They cling round the stems of stronger plants and imbibe their juices. That is, they vicariously,
The parasite, the leech,
live their lives through the people they wish they were.
So, I've been doing these posts about authenticity. And this is actually why the process of like posting or speaking actually opens up so much more. And I found this, it's a real weird thing. Like when I make a video, I'm learning about the subject as I'm making and editing the video, because in the process of making a video, I then go back over what I've said, in which sometimes it doesn't even feel what I've said has come from me, it's come from somewhere else, which I'll get to in a minute, like this authenticity, which I believe is the soul. And in the process of making the video and then editing, I will find clips of either things that I knew existed, but then in that process I'm going over again and I'm understanding a new layer to it. And then I feel more confident talking about the subject in the future, because in the process of making that video, there's like hours of time that you have to go and, you know, listen and re-listen over all these things. Anyway, this is what I've found doing now. And I've got to thank Dee for jumping on the podcast with me and Madeline last week, because she's the one that sparked me understanding this on another layer again, because we asked the question to Dee after she was being harassed by Australian Federal Police or Counter-Terrorism Police, whoever they were, in the COVID period, and she was a direct target, and people around her of stuff they were putting out, and we asked her, because in an original interview I did with her a while ago, I asked her, why were they targeting you? And she goes, I think it was because we were like talking about the Magna Carta. Now this time she said, now I've thought about it differently now, and someone said to her that, do you know what, Dee, it was your authenticity, sincerity and humility was the reason you were protected, because anyway, it ended up being that she was protected and nothing happened.
To other people who were also talking about the same stuff and, going against the system. And a good friend of mine said this to me. She brought this to my attention. She goes, you know why I think you were untouched compared to like a lot of people who got their houses raided, got thrown in jail or whatever. She goes, I think it was because your humility in how you did things. It wasn't coming from like a place of ego, but that's why they didn't like me as well. And that's why they tried to come after me as much as they could and scare me, because I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't leading people down another path of religion or a path like another trap. It was all about like know thyself, know who you are, know your standing, have faith and trust, and stay positive, stay strong. And I think that for that reason they saw me as a major threat, because they were like, this girl is giving hope, this girl is talking about the strength and power that people have. Like that's exactly what they don't want us, so I think that is, when she mentioned that and brought that to my attention, I thought, fuck, maybe she's right, maybe that's what it was. I honestly think it's the people that they should be worried about the most are the ones who are not in their ego, who aren't subscribing to a program or a construct, and who are not leading people down a freaking dead end.
But she said that, a lot of other people within activist circles and such, that they're not holding on to that sincerity, authenticity, and also the humility. And for those that have looked at like people like Chip Tatum, who was this pilot for George Bush Sr., and he spoke a lot about how, and he used to fly assassins and stuff around and fly George Bush around directly. And so he got to learn some of their ways of how they would conduct operations. And he said that they would, you had to try and compromise the politician or whoever it may be to get to work with you. And also that if you were going to assassinate someone, that you had to compromise the person that you were trying to assassinate. And what Mark Passio calls this, that's part of a destruction ritual. So you got creation, destruction, and sex rituals. And the destruction ritual is when an authentic person is trying to play out something that is against the dark occult's agenda. And the only way that they can counteract that is with a destruction ritual, in which, it's kind of like a curse that they'll put on that person. But this opens up an ability for that person to be attacked. Now, if that person is living out of authenticity, sincerity, and humility, then there is not a possibility of an energetic sync. If there cannot be an energetic sync, then that person cannot be taken out on the physical. And people might think this is ridiculous, but like David Icke explained this many years ago, how when he was asked the question, why do you not have a bodyguard? And this old one where, if that guy was true, he'd be dead, right? And these people don't understand how law works and how the dark occult have to follow this law.
People have said to me many times, why don't you have bodyguards, or do you have bodyguards? And I say, well, absolutely bloody not. Because what is a bodyguard? A bodyguard is a physical expression of a mental state. And that mental state is, I accept that something could happen to me. I accept that I could be killed, or this could happen to me, or that could happen to me. Therefore, I need protection. This guy in a dark suit and glasses. I don't accept that. Because once you accept into your sense of reality that things could happen to you, then they're far, far more likely to happen. Because you are creating the energetic mental state in which they can manifest. I don't accept that that can happen to me, and if it can't happen to me, I don't need bloody bodyguards, thank you very much. Energy and protecting yourself from manipulation of energy. And there is a lot in that, you know, there's a lot of people manipulated by being energetically targeted, electromagnetically targeted in many and various ways to destabilize the health of the body and the mind and emotions and everything. And I've experienced that over the years. But if I keep my heart open and I go on doing what I know to be right, as opposed to what I think is right for me in the moment, but what is the right thing to do in this time. Okay, this might have unpleasant consequences for me, but it's the right thing to do. If you do that, all these mental and emotional states are manifestations of vibrational states. The more fear you're in, the slower your energy vibrates, so it becomes denser. And when you keep your mind open, you keep your heart open, and you do what you know to be right, that manifests as a vibrational state, quite a high vibrational state, quick. Now, if I'm vibrating faster because of that, and I'm not saying me, I'm saying anybody, than the control system, which is based on slow density, which is why they're trying to pull humanity all the time into fear and stress and worry and depression, because that pulls you into their density. But if I'm vibrating quickly, or anyone is, because of their state of being, then the control system cannot energetically, vibrationally connect to me. If it cannot connect vibrationally, it cannot connect physically, because the physical is just an expression of the vibrational, the information. So I'm not saying a lot of people go through this energetic protection and my aura and all that stuff, and good luck to them. Yeah, everyone makes a choice. Good luck to them. I respect it. But if you in any way become obsessed with protection, what you're saying is, I accept something can happen to me. In which case you're creating an energetic environment in which it could well happen to you. I don't accept that. So I don't protect myself. Why? Because I don't need protecting.
And so the person that is holding authenticity, in what Dee spoke about, actually becomes energetically untouchable.
I felt protected because I felt that they couldn't even see me. It was weird. I felt invisible to the construct. I wasn't playing their game. I wasn't entertaining their lower vibrational frequency fear or shit like that. So I felt like I just wasn't able to be touched or seen. And even though it was very confronting and intimidating, there was this element of I felt safe. I felt protected. And I think it was because I wasn't part of their little program.
To the point where they will back off, but they will put, even in a destruction ritual, they'll put roadblocks or temptations and things in place. And this is seen with, like, when Jesus is tempted in the desert by Satan for 40 days and 40 nights, right? Whereas he's offered all the kingdoms and riches of the world and all this, and he won't do it. And basically what he's passing a test of authenticity. And I was looking at, like, all the these different Bible bits that correlate with authenticity. But what actually, another one that got me on this path was someone mentioned to me, now I haven't read the book, but it's supposedly out of this book, where they're able to use with technology and measure different human traits and emotions. And most people would say that the highest human emotion is love. And I think love in its purest form is exactly the same as what I'm going to mention next. But they said that it was actually 400 times higher, that the highest human quality and expression is authenticity.
A law in the physical universe. It's called constructive interference. And it says that when two wavelengths of equal length meet, the size of the frequency doubles. But what this means is that you can get energy from conversation. You can get energy from the people around you, or they can take energy away from you. And so I started to go down this spiritual rabbit hole, and I found a research project called the Spain Scale of Emotion, S-P-A-N-E. Researchers were able to take 25,000 subjects and put them in a room, and they were able to measure the frequency leaving the human body. And do you know what the most powerful frequency to leave the human body is? Frequency of authenticity. Authenticity is 4,000 times more powerful than love. Do you know when authenticity happens? Authenticity happens when your words are truthful and you believe what
The highest frequency is authenticity. Not love, joy. Yeah, it's nice, but it's that.
And they found that the greatest frequency to ever leave a human being's body is the frequency of authenticity. Is the frequency of authenticity. It is the most attractive and the most powerful frequency that humankind has. So how do you emit the emotion? How do you emit the frequency of authenticity? Your words have to be truthful, and you have to believe what you're saying. If you believe what you're saying and your words are truthful, you will emit the frequency of authenticity. It is the most attractive frequency that the universe gives us. If you want to attract abundance, be authentic about your mission.
And then I went, wow, isn't that amazing right now? People might think about that, and I'll tell you where my thinking has gone. Now, this is how all the pieces are starting to fit together. Now, after like years of looking at simulation theory, but also that there is a cosmic mimic, and this goes all back into the stuff of the holographic nature of the universe, stuff I've looked into with George Kavasilis and the God Matrix, John Lamb Lash, not in his image, and of course David Icke's work. That all, because people ask me, oh, how did you come across this information? And I don't think there isn't a book that summarizes what I'm trying to say all in one book, because this is part, again, of my authenticity and how I've put the pieces of this puzzle together and what I can see as the most likely possibility of what's happening at the moment. And what I can see is authenticity is the true soul expression. Now, under the model that George Kavasilis has mentioned before, and I don't want to be a sycophant to him, but again, I haven't seen it explained in these terms better than he does, and that's why I use this, and I have my own way of looking at it. But the way that he explains it is that every one of us, and this is what Jason Bashir shares to us too in different language, he calls us the immortal, and he also says that he calls us within. If you are aware of the immortal self within the realm that we are in now, and we are in this through intention, that he calls that the highly individualized being, or the highly individualized soul. And this is exactly what George explains, that there is no creation as in the infinite nature of life, or the immortal. So we are all the immortals, right?
That's what informed fields are. They're fantasies. They do not exist in the simulacrum's reality. They have not been knit mathematically into the simulacrum's protocols or subroutines. They're not there. They belong to the individual immortal who imagined them. Because imagination is not cerebral. Imagination is 100% a spiritual phenomenon, just like intuition, which is not produced by the brain. Imagination, intuition, and empathy. These are what make you spiritual. These qualities denote that you are far more than a human. You are something else. The human is only the physical part of the informed field for which the immortal soul produced.
You see, within the universal construct, because it's a universe of contrasting expressions, we have an entity that has to come in from the universe, not be of this universe, but claim to be this universe. Do you understand that concept? You also have, below here, you have the creator of this universe expressing itself as the foundational energetic pattern for the grand cosmic arena. So this is a reflection of that. It's contrasting. So this is the lower aspect, if you want to look at it hierarchically speaking, of the creator expressing itself here, which facilitates the grand cosmic arena and all the fun and games that go along in this fun park. Now within this arena you have an entity that started to create its own version of light. It has to be this way. It's the way the universe works. And this then provides all the programs of challenge for all the beings that enter into it. It's genius. So ultimately, this entity that's the creator of this is actually working for that, even though its own ego construct will never admit to that. Here you have an entity that's claiming to be the creator of all that is and all that exists. So what I'm asking you is not to get that mixed up with a serpent in the Bible, even though there's an element connected to it. There's a thread of truth in it, okay? But I don't want you to have that as a dominating factor so it doesn't taint what I'm trying to explain here to you. So you've got the negative charge in the arena and the positive charge in the arena. That charge of energy was the one that could facilitate this. And because this entity is claiming to be the creator of all these and all that exists, it needed to create its own version of light energy. And so within its own synthetic construct, it's created the God of religion versus the serpent of religion, Satan. It's a dialect. It's got its own positive and negative arena that it's created, and it's sucking people into it. Try not to get caught up in God versus the devil, because see, this is the problem. Too many people are caught up in this. They can't see past that arena. They're caught up. You know when you get dragged into an argument between two friends? Sometimes you get caught up in it. And you can't see beyond the argument. And you're left bouncing from one to the other. It's the same kind of thing. This God entity has created this dialectic of God versus the devil, and everyone's caught up in it. It's an arena that's been created. Because if you ever heard of problem, reaction, solution? Okay, so it needs to create the problem because it wants to provide you with a solution. So
those that can see at the moment are expressing part of the immortal within this realm. So for a being to be infinite, this is the great question. You are either created or you're infinite. You cannot be the two. You cannot be both. And this is like within religious dogma that eternal life is promised to you, right? If you do this, and this, then eternal life will be given to you, right? Now, eternal life is like it's like natural. It's like your rights. You cannot be gifted. It's like with the Second Amendment, right? You can't be gifted or have the right to self-defense taken away. It is a born natural right. It can't be gifted to you. And your immortality and your infinite, your eternal life cannot be gifted or taken away because it is what you are. You are eternal. You are infinite. Infinite means you were never created and you will never cease to exist. You always have been and you always will be. Now that is in the infinite nature of life. Then all as in individual infinite beings, we are our own universes in the infinite nature of life. And then what we do is we go inside each other. This is why the whole way of being in the infinite nature of life and this universe is all based on relationship, because every single being that is an infinite then makes a co-creation with the universal creator that we're in. We're in one universe, which includes all the multiverses. That is one universe. Then this universe, because it is based on light, light is created from dark and light. So this is how you get light. You don't just have light with just light. People go, oh, we shine the light and we kill the dark. That's not what this universe is. This universe is a universe of contrast. It is a universe of duality. It's a universe of polarity. It's a universe of light. The structure of this universe is light. Dark, light, dark, light. And we see this within all the cyclic natures. And so if, you got to ask this very question, once you've come to the idea that the universe is duality, it's a universe of contrasting expressions, that if this being is an organic universal creator, then it, within its own beingness, there must be the polar opposite. There must be a mimic. And this is where I'm getting to with authenticity. And the mimic is Yod-Baoth. It's the demiurge. It's Yahweh. It is the Lord your God. It is what they call within Gnostic texts as a demiurge is the counterfeit spirit. The counterfeit is a mimic. How many references in the Bible is there to the jealous God? The jealous God. Jealousy is all based off, jealousy is expressed through mimicking. If you look, and everything, the other way you need to look at this universe too is if something exists here, it exists on all levels, right? And the other one that Jason shares is that if something is true, it'll be proven by multiple vantage points, as which I've come to this conclusion. So, if the expression of jealousy is mimicry, think of how in human nature, right? I think this is even how cultures are created. Microcultures and then macrocultures to like the nation state or whatever it may be, or religious cultures or whatever it may be, is that the highest, the person that is the most assertive in their belief and knowing and confident within themselves, and the true confidence within themselves is their own authenticity. People are attracted to that authenticity because that person is expressing their unique soul expression that is part of the infinite. People are attracted to that, and then what they do is they will mimic. People will mimic, and mimicry is based out of jealousy. And if you even look at people like Spanian, this guy that's blown up on the internet in Australia, the reason he's popular is for one reason: he goes into the hood in these areas, but he is authentic. He's not trying to be anyone else. He's just trying to be him. And you see it in so many different realms. People are like trying to make TikTok videos and stuff, and there's a formula. This is how you make the video, blah, blah, blah. And you can see they're following a formula. It's not authentic. They're trying to be something else. And the whole, what do you call it? Influencer thing is all mimicry. So what I'm saying is these are expressions of mimicry that is, on the universal level, that there has been a ego construct that has been created below this void, and this is what the simulation is. The simulation is a collection of the ego of mimicry. So, and this shows that this being is jealous of universal creation. So what it has done is it's mimicked universal creation. And David Icke goes through John Lamlash's book, and he says that the demiurge fashions a fractal world, fashions a world based off the fractal patterns of the eternal eons. Now, this is in the model that I've explained, that what he's saying there is the fractal pattern nature of this universe exists within the hologram and what I call universal compression, right? That everything compresses into a smaller part of the whole. Everything is a part of the whole. And then so what it's done, because it's a mimicry, it's mimicked the same thing. So AI is mimicking universal creation. And that's why I've said before, like things like the sentient world simulation is creating a universal compression, is creating a synthetic compression of the already synthetic AI that exists, right?
Astral reality is being mirrored in 3D, and one is more and more reflecting the other. It means the perception of divine sparks becomes the same at both ends of the 4D, 3D feedback loop, to infuse a sense of impotence, to break the spirit and cause them to be utterly lost in the fantasy. Astral divine sparks are submerged in layer after layer of illusion, and the 3D projection is going through the same process. Artificial intelligence, the metaverse, and the absorption of perception into cyberspace are all emerging layers of illusion to disconnect to an even greater extreme the divine spark trapped in the simulation from its true identity. When you think and perceive, your AI astral mind divine spark is thinking and perceiving. How awake you are reflects how awake is your divine spark to its infinite identity. You are your divine spark, which the AI astral mind has been created to suppress and enslave. What appears to be the cult conspiring to control the world is the astral Wi-Fi field being decoded into an illusory experience of the cult conspiring to control the world. Even the cult is an illusion at this level of awareness. It's all illusion, all of it, every last vibration. Klaus Schwab, Bill Gates, the Rockefellers and Rothschilds do not exist except as an information field decoded into illusory holographic reality. It's all AI. A belief in Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, any ism, whatever your cultural foundation or political system of choice, are only diversions and cul-de-sacs to keep hidden this simple fact. All humans of every kind, color, race and belief have been trapped in a colossal illusion designed to enslave divine sparks in a false reality based on false perceptions and self-identity.
If the highest human expression is authenticity and not love, and our goal is freedom, then authenticity is truth. And then if we want freedom, it is so much an individual process, because no one should be trying to be anyone else. The way I think that we gain freedom is everyone to express their unique soul expression. And this makes you look at every single thing that you do. How much of my behaviors are mimics and programs of something that I want to be? And I think what these are archetypes that we're attached to the archetypes, because the archetypes are fragmented parts of ourselves. And when you attach to one certain archetype, you get caught in that expression and don't move on from that too. Fuck, there was something else I was going to say. This was important. I will forget. But even think of, again, I've got to bring up football again. Now, football, like when I was younger, even in the early 90s, they would do interviews with football players, and it was really interesting. And shows like the football show, the footy show, was such a popular show because they ran off the cuff. It was hardly even planned. And you had someone like Sam Newman, who, hate him or love him, was an individual. He was authentic. He was expressing what he really felt. And when the show started to get quashed in the late, 2018, 2019 was when they were really clamping down, and what it's trying to uniform everything into the mimic.
And the media are just about, we have the cow-eyed people that look down the lens of a camera and say, oh yes, it's good. They don't believe one word they say. I could name them and I know them well. I've been out with them. I've been in their company. I know exactly who they are. And they look down the light and they've got the big cow eyes, and they are such sycophants to the organisation they are. That they kowtow to, and no one's got any guts to push back on this stuff. It's just
We're talking past players, Sam, are we?
We've got to push about commentators and people on shows.
Why do they kowtow so much? Because they'll lose their jobs?
Because they are complicit. They are sycophantic to the organisation,
like
without
collaborators,
actually having a soul or a spine and saying something. They got their snouts in the trough.
And now you've got interviews with football players where they go, yeah, it was a tough game, we'll go back next. Like, they say the same shit over and over again because they know that's all they're allowed to get away with. And any time that anyone tries to branch out and express their own authenticity, they're shut down, right? And so people just know to form into this mold and this community. And even shows like Big Brother, when Big Brother first came on TV, regardless of what you say of that, the original first season of Big Brother, they didn't even know it was going to be popular. And what the show is like, you can't act because they're in there for like 3 months. So even though it's all edited and they can make people look good and bad based on the editing process, the actual conversations and things that took place on the show was all authentic. And people fell in love with some of these characters that were on the show because they weren't doing anything but being themselves, because they couldn't not be themselves because they were in there for that long, right? And especially when you're online, with like me doing these videos, you can fake a fake persona for a certain amount of time, and you can do it all the time online. But and then people will say, like, if they meet someone that's, you know, that makes videos or whatever, and then, you know, they'll either say that person's exactly who they are online, or that they're completely the opposite. And those that are completely the opposite are portraying an image of what is the collective. Now, Michael Tazarian spoke about this as what the shadow work is. When you always hear this term shadow work, and what the shadow is the shadow is the collective. So when you're talking about the collective, you're going up against all the archetypes. You're going up against all different institutions, programs and structures that exist within society, that are all aspects of the self. And so the shadow work is how do you express your individual uniqueness away from your attuneness to the collective, right? I'm probably not putting that right, but that the collective is all these different programs, right, that are trying to get you to play out mimicry, right? So you're mimicking aspects of the collective instead of the truly individualized being is a participant in this reality, but can observe the collective, and is actually not. You are part of the collective, and what you do as an individualized being affects the collective without having any intention to affect the collective. And Jason's been talking about that you're not here to save the world, but you are here to pass through. And I'm to and fro a little bit like that. I don't think necessarily you are here to save the world, but you are here to understand yourself. But the process of being authentic actually impacts the collective. So it's kind of like it's a bit like a paradox. But anyway, this mimicry thing, again, it came up yesterday because Abby Chatfield did this video and she's basically slamming anti-vaxxers, and then she turned the comments off, and I got all these funny comments from people, and she's widely hated, and I'd say more in the circles that people that but people that I know are on, right? So I would expect that kind of response. But interestingly, she turned the comments off. So turning the comments off, what does that say? That because the comments are going to be coming from the collective, from the shadow, and by turning the comments off, because she knows she's going to have feedback and disputes to what she's putting out, because what she's putting out was absolute fucking nonsense. And she's actually pushing for online censorship through revelations of the AstraZeneca stuff too, which shows it's exactly along the program of what the government's putting out. So it wouldn't be surprised if she's paid. But what is she doing by turning the comments off? She's saying, I don't acknowledge the shadow, and saying I don't acknowledge the shadow and seeing how the shadow impacts me, that she actually is the shadow, and all her programs and what she spits out are nothing but the shadow. It's all the collective. None of what she speaks is coming from the authenticity of the individualized being. And some people, and she's one of them, some people, unless she has some great revelation, but up to this point in her life, some people like her will go their entire life and never have one original thought, ever. They will think they have conscious thought, but they don't. Everything that comes to them is subconscious programming. Everything that comes out of her mouth is subconscious programming. And this is interesting too, because the story of the demiurge who becomes the counterfeit spirit, the mimic, actually, the original story of when he leaves the water of the upper aeons of waveform information, the original base reality, where he leaves there, he leaves the mother from the upper aeon. And it's almost like this jealousy, this energy of jealousy, I think too, comes from abandonment. And ultimately this God being wants to play out control and dominion of its own finite realm, because it has no control of the infinite. And that comes from its own abandonment, right? And this is why that this God being must project onto us the idea of original sin. It must make us feel sinful, and sinful means we are in debt to it for our own being. You must be indebted for who you are. Before anything even starts, you are of sin, which means you are of debt, which means you always must pay back. And what this God asks for you to pay back, on the side of Lucifer, it asks for loose energy and sacrifice and all the nasty stuff. And on the other side, it demands worship. So this is where the original sin is a feedback mechanism to get you to worship. I am in sin, I am in debt, I will worship you, and eternal life will be given to me. Whereas it's an absolute fucking lie. Eternal life cannot be given or taken from you. You are eternal. That is what you are.
That's the problem here. And we're all being tricked into externalizing and giving our power away constantly. You're created beings. You're universal beings. You have access to the whole freaking universe. Wake up and start realizing it. You've got to get the people to love praying to you so you can feed off their energy. That's what gods do. That's how they become gods. They feed off you. It's a feeding mechanism. Prayer, ritual, it's all feeding. People are projecting their energy to that God. It's not an equal, loving relationship with that entity. There's going to be rewards in it for you, but it's not what you think it is. Here we have the negative charge it's creating, which is all yucky and, devil stuff, because ultimately it wants to bring you over here to this beautiful, positive, apparently loving arena that it wants you here. So it'll create the positive charge here, but it has to have the negative here. It imposes this on you, which then forces you to look over here. It's hurting you. It's funneling you in that direction. That's what that dialectic is designed to do. There is no better than that entity right now, and it's called God. God is the problem. God is not the creator. God is the problem. It's the virus. Yahweh is another name for this entity, the God entity. Allah is another name for it. I mean, we got serious problems in this world. We do. Every culture has a name for it. And they're all doorways and portals, but they're all heading to the same arena. It's like a building with multiple doors entering, but they're all attached to that building. And each doorway on that building has its own advertising campaign, and you're walking around that building and, oh yeah, Buddhism. No, I don't like that. Christianity. No, I don't like that. Islam. No, I don't like that. But eventually you come across one. Freemasonry. Oh, I like that. There's no difference between any of them.
So anyway, authenticity. It was a penny drop for me. I've been thinking about this non-stop. I couldn't even sleep last night just thinking about this. And I haven't got the ability to express what was coming through to me last night, but it was like profound. And I feel that this is such a fucking important key, is authenticity. So, and look, I'm not doing this video as a preacher, like I'm fucking authentic, look at me. I've been the most inauthentic at times of my life, and still am at times. And what now that I'm starting to think about it, where my authenticity doesn't come through. Sometimes you're put in positions like in the workplace, like when I played a lot of football, and you started getting older, and then every Tuesday, Thursday night training was about who shagged who took what drugs on the weekend, who got fucked up, who did the most crazy thing on the weekend, fucked up. It was basically just smut talk, which like I don't mind that sort of talk. Like I can engage in that every now and then, but that became 95% of the conversation every week, and I basically got sick of it. I kind of grew up and or was growing up, But what it was I can engage in those conversations for a brief amount of time, but then when it's constant, I end up you're like, do I laugh and play along with the group, which is the shadow, the collective, or do I express my individual uniqueness, which is very hard, right? And this is what we saw all through the COVID period. There was a crying of people wanting to express their own sovereignty by saying no, and that was their own authenticity. They couldn't, right? They couldn't engage with it. But so much of it is going against the grain. And what's the Oscar Wilde quote? I'll put it in here, but it's like Oscar Wilde says, I can't remember, like their own words of mimicry or something like that. Anyway, I'll have to put it in here. I might just post this and then post a clipped version video later. But I feel this is so important because, of course, like when you understand this void in reality, the reality that is duality, that if there is duality, there must be creation, there must be a mimic of creation. There has to be. It's duality, right? There is a polar expression to everything, and the polar expression, I'll keep going on, but like the polar expression of the true infinite is the mimic, which is all based on jealousy, right? And this is what Madeline said. Madeline said that her most hated, not hate, I shouldn't say that word. I think she said, I asked her what triggers you the most, and she says people who are not being themselves, and in the process of not being themselves, they try and be someone else, which is what this is, mimicry. And so I can just see that this being, this God being, this demiurge, this Yahweh, I can see, because there's so much expression of that this is based on mimicry, that is that energy playing through people on a human level. So the antidote is authenticity. It's fucking simple, isn't it? I mean, it's not simple always doing it, but the answer is simple. I think it's so important. But I'll try and put this in a video and mash some clips in that'll make more sense. But then again, when you know your authenticity, right, what you're actually doing is you're connecting with the part of yourself that's infinite. And then when you're doing that, you completely exist far beyond the doctrine and paradigm of fucking religious doctrine. And of course, this is why people are so attached to religious doctrine, because in its core, it's all the stories are based off truth, but it's a mimic of truth. And this is what I've said, what the process of what I've seen coming is there is a true unity coming. So if there is a true unity of humanity coming, there must be a mimic of unity coming together. And this is what I'm seeing, the whole, like the Trump side and the evil Democrat side, or the Satanist and the Trump God worshipping thing, that they're going to play off these two figures against each other, and a defeat of the dark to bring a form of unity, which will be a mimic of true love. And I've said this again many times as well, I'll probably leave it at this, but the mimic of love is worship. That's what I can see at the moment, that the mimic of true love is worship. Whereas true love in itself is this authenticity. Whereas everyone is an authentic, universal, infinite, immortal being. And when you know that everyone is that, then what do you worship? There is no fucking form of worship. There is no hierarchy. And hierarchy feeds in jealousy. Hierarchy actually creates mimicry. Because you can see what is successful and then people mimic that. Anyway, I'm just continually repeating myself, but I kind of just had to get this out at the moment. I had to get this thought process out because I know it'll come and it'll go. But I would actually, for anyone that's interested, I would like to actually try and do a presentation on this to explain it with showing some evidence, as I said before, that if something is true, it'll be seen by multiple different vantage points. So if that is the case, then I want to be able to show how this mimicry is expressed on all different levels of the hologram, and it's based in jealousy and the finite. So anyway, I'll leave it at that before I continually repeat myself. But yeah, authenticity is the highest human expression. Crazy, eh?
They belong to the individual immortal who imagined them. Because imagination is not cerebral. Imagination is 100% a spiritual phenomenon, just like intuition, which is not produced by the brain. Imagination, intuition, and empathy. These are what make you spiritual. These qualities denote that you are far more than a human. You are something else. The human is only the physical part of the informed field for which the immortal soul produced, to put it here inside the simulacrum. By putting it here inside the simulacrum, it made it subject to its laws. You must obey the construct's protocols, and those protocols mandate that if you want something to physically appear in your reality, then you have to imagine it, which is spiritual. Then you have to do a follow-through. The informed field must be backed up with something physical in the world. It doesn't matter if it's a ritual, it doesn't matter if it's behavior. Behavior is physical. But it has to be something that will show the simulacrum that whatever it is that is imagined is real.